All right, thanks, guys. Happy Sunday to you. And I'll tell you what, I'm feeling great on a Sunday morning because I went 4-2 in my 6 personal bets on brockpage.com yesterday. And if you want to see which one of these free YouTube picks on this video that I'm actually betting on personally, you may want to think about joining my board member package on brockpage.com, where you'll get access to every single bet that I make on that website every single day, all the way through the end of January. We also have over 880 members who are signed up and active on my website right now. And the link for my board member tier package is in the description section below. And with that, let's go ahead and get into it. We're pushing it close here. We got to fly through this video. Anyway, Clippers versus the Knicks, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. New York's -4 with the total at 205.5. But despite being favored by a couple of buckets here, New York lost their last 3 straight, and they also play their worst basketball at home. As a matter of fact, the Knicks are scoring only 104 points a game, and they also find themselves in the bottom 5 in shooting from the field at home. They're taking on a Clipper team who covered the point spread in their last 3 straight themselves, and they also rank in the top 3 in the NBA in defensive field goal percentage on the road. Now, the Clippers are also holding their competition to just 32% shooting from 3 land. And what am I going to say? Drawing a blank. Still feeling great, because of our winning picks yesterday. But anyway, when it comes to 3-pointers, the Clippers are actually in the top 10 in the NBA in shooting from beyond the arc. So, yeah, think about that. Now, injury-wise, Preston is sitting this one out here today due to a foot. Meanwhile, for New York, Noel and Reddish, they are questionable for them. Arcidiacono, he is out. When it comes to the total in this one, New York saw overs recently with Minnesota, Atlanta, and Boston. Meanwhile, for the Clippers on the other side of things, they saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the line themselves. They're also 7-3 to the over in their last 10 meetings with the Knicks. So if you're into historical trends, maybe you want to think about that one there. I'm going to lean toward the LA Clippers +4 in the over 205.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Celtics versus the Wizards, 3:30 Eastern start time. Boston is -1.5 with the total at 215. Now the Celtics play they lost their last 2 straight, and they play their worst basketball on the road. As a matter of fact, the Celtics, they got the W in just 8 out of 22 road games, and they're currently in the bottom 10 in shooting the 3 ball. Meanwhile, defensively, Boston has kind of struggled to grab, rebounds. They're currently in the bottom 10 in defensive boards on the road. They're taking on a Washington team who's beaten the likes of Philadelphia, Orlando, and Charlotte recently. The Wizards also have a winning record at home, and they also do a nice job of shooting the basketball. Washington is currently in the top 5 in offensive field goal percentage. Bradley Beal scoring over 23.5 points a game, along with 4 boards and 6.5 assists. Meanwhile, Kyle Kuzma is scoring over 15.5 points a night himself, along with 8 boards and a couple assists as well. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, Washington finds themselves in the top 10 in guarding the 3 ball at home. And of course, when it comes to the injury report, Washington is mostly healthy for today's ball game. Meanwhile, for Boston, Smart and Nesmith, they are listed as questionable for them. And of course, when it comes to the total in this one, Washington is 60% to the over in their last 10 ball games. Boston went 4-2 to the over in their last 6 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Washington +1.5 and the over 215. Next contest, it is going to be Bulls versus the Magic, 6 o'clock Eastern start time. Chicago is -3 with a total at 215.5. But as bad as Orlando has been this season, well, Chicago's actually been equally as terrible recently. They lost 5 out of their last 6 ball games. And they're still going to work here without Levine, Caruso, and Ball. That's a ton of points that, they're just leaving on the table there simply due to injury. Now, when it comes to rebounding the basketball, well, Chicago is just about as bad as there is on the offensive end of the court. These guys are currently dead last in offensive rebounding on the road. Now, Chicago also struggles a bit guarding the three ball. They're taking on an Orlando team who covered the number recently against the likes of Charlotte, Washington, and this very Chicago team. As a matter of fact, Orlando is currently in the top 5 in the NBA in fourth quarter scoring. I always say it in every video when we cover Orlando. With that particular stat, that late game scoring, well, that back door is always open. Now, Cole Anthony, he's drilling over 18 points a game for Orlando, along with 6 boards and 5 assists. Meanwhile, Franz Wagner is averaging over 15 points a night himself, along with 4 boards and a couple assists as well. Now, injury-wise, Terrence Ross is questionable for Orlando. Meanwhile, for Chicago, once again, Caruso, Levine, and Ball, they are still out indefinitely. When it comes to the total in this one, Chicago 6-1 to the over in their last 7 ball games. Meanwhile, Orlando saw 4 out of their last 6 get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Orlando +3 in the over 215.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Lakers versus the Heat, 6 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Miami's the 2.5-point favorite with the total at 216. Now, Miami's gotten the W in 6 out of their last 8 ball games, and they actually do a great job of grabbing defensive boards. Having said that, though, the Heat did lose 6 out of their last 10 meetings with the Lakers, and they've done a poor job of defending the 3-ball at home this year. Now, as a matter of fact, Miami's in the bottom 3 in defensive 3-point percentage on their home court. They're taking on a Lakers team who could potentially have Anthony Davis back in the lineup here today. He's been upgraded to questionable with that knee injury. The Lakers also got the W in 2 out of their last 3. And they've done a really nice job offensively this year. LA finds themselves in the top 10 in road scoring, top 5 in road offensive rebounding. Now, LeBron James is averaging over 28.5 points a night, along with 7 boards and 6 assists. Meanwhile, Russell Westbrook, he's scoring 18.5 points a game, along with 8 rebounds and 7 assists as well. And when it comes to the injury report, Kendrick Nunn is still out for the Lakers. Meanwhile, for Miami, Lowry, Hero, and Opala, they are out. Tucker is questionable as well. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, Miami did go 60% to the over in their last 10 ball games. Overs against the likes of Atlanta, Phoenix, and Portland. Meanwhile, for the Lakers, they went 70% to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Lakers +2.5 in the over 216. Next contest, it is going to be Blazers versus the Raptors, 6 o'clock Eastern start time. Toronto is -8 with the total at 213 and a hook. But despite, this being a pretty big number here, the Raptors have done a really nice job covering the point spread here recently. They're actually 7-3 against the spread in their last 10 outings. And they've also played some pretty good defense at home. The Raptors are giving up just 104 points a night in the Scotiabank Arena. And they're also in the top 10 in home offensive rebounding. Freddie VanVleet, he's scoring over 21.5 points a night, along with 4 rebounds and 6 assists. Now, Freddie's also draining 40% of his 3 balls. Meanwhile, Pascal Siakam, he's averaging 21 points a game himself, along with 8 boards and 4 assists. Now, they're taking on a Portland squad who's amongst the worst road teams in the West. The Blazers got the W in only 5 of 20 road games this season, and they covered in only 30% of those very contests. Portland's also one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA as well. They currently find themselves dead last in the entire association in defensive 3-point percentage. And they're also letting their opponents knock down nearly 50% of their field goals against them when they travel. Now, when it comes to the injury report in this one, Zeller, Powell, and Nance, they are listed as out. Meanwhile, Smith and Little, they are listed as questionable. Meanwhile, for Toronto on the other side of things, Birch and Johnson, they are out for them. Of course, number-wise, Toronto saw 7 out of their last 10 meetings with the Blazers get over the line. So if you're into historical trends, yeah. Anyway, the Raptors, they're 13-10 to the over at the Scotiabank Arena. Meanwhile, Portland saw 3 out of their last 5 get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Toronto -8 and the over 213.5. All right, next contest. It is going to be Hawks versus the Hornets. 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Charlotte is -3 with the total at 235.5. Now, Charlotte has struggled on the defensive end of the court this season, and they are actually having some difficulties grabbing defensive rebounds. Having said that, though, the Hornets are on a 3-game winning streak right now, and they also got the W in 7 out of their last 10. Now, when it comes to covering the number in this one, the Hornets have been very good in that particular category as well. They're 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 ball games, and they're also covering in 79% of their contests at the Spectrum Center. Miles Bridges is averaging over 20 points a game, along with 7 rebounds and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Gordon Hayward, he's drilling 40% of his 3 balls. He's also averaging 17 points a game. Now, when it comes to three-pointers, the Hornets lead the entire NBA in home three-point shooting. They also score more points per contest at home than any other team in the association. They're taking on an Atlanta club who wins only 39% of their road games themselves. And they've significantly struggled defensively. The Hawks are giving up 113 points per contest on the road. And they're also in the bottom 5 in guarding the 3-ball. Now, injury-wise, Bogdanović is out. Gallinari and Herter are questionable. Meanwhile, for Charlotte on the other side of things, McDaniels is out with an ankle. And of course, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Charlotte saw overs recently with Orlando, Detroit, and Washington. Meanwhile, the Hawks on the other side, they are 70% to the over in their last 10. I'm going to lean towards Charlotte -3 and the over 235.5. I knew I had coffee somewhere. All right, next ball game. It is going to be Sixers versus the Spurs. 7 o'clock Eastern start time. All right, nice and cold. Philadelphia's -2, totals 220.5. Now, the Sixers got the W in 7 out of their last 10 road games, and they played their best basketball on the road. Matter of fact, Philadelphia allows just 105 points a game when they travel. And they're also in the top 10 in guarding the 3-ball in that same category. Now, scoring-wise, Joel Embiid, he's averaging over 28 points a game, along with double-digit rebounds. Now, the big man's also draining nearly 40% of his three-pointers. And speaking of 3-balls, Tyrese Maxey, he's drilling 41% of his shots from beyond the arc as well. I said the other day, I don't think a lot of folks that break down basketball games are talking about Tyrese Maxey much, but the dude's a legit threat shooting that long ball. Now, Philadelphia actually finds themselves in the top 10 in the entire NBA in offensive three-point percentage. They're taking on a Spurs team who lost 7 out of their last 9 ball games themselves, and they win just 39% of their home games. Now, the Spurs' biggest problem this season has been their defensive effort or lack thereof. They're in the bottom 3 in points allowed per contest at home, and they're struggling with offensive rebounding as well. Now, injury-wise, Collins is still out for San Antonio. Meanwhile, for Philadelphia, Green and Curry, they are out for them. Milton and Thibault, they are still out indefinitely as well. And when it comes to the total in this one, Philadelphia saw overs recently against Orlando, Boston, and Houston. They're also 60% to the over in their last 10 ball games, just, in general. Meanwhile, the Spurs on the other side, they've gone 16-7 to the over at the AT&T Center themselves. I'm going to lean toward Philadelphia -2. And the over 220.5, guys, we got to move because, we're getting close to tip-off. So let's dive into the quick pick recap, all right? The quick pick recap is powered to you by my website at brockpage.com. where we're 3-1 in our last 4 board member tier package picks. I like the Clippers +4 over 205.5. Washington +1.5 over 215. Orlando +3 over 215.5. LA Lakers +2.5 over 216. Toronto -8 over 213 and a hook. Charlotte -3 over 235.5. Philadelphia -2 over 220 and a hook. Dallas -4 under 218. Brooklyn +3 under 236. Denver -11 under 218. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that if you want to access today's board member tier package pick, the link for that play is in the description section below. I'm going to lean toward Golden State -4.5 and the under 221. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out at brockpage.com. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on brockpage.com, you're going to get access to those picks all the way through the end of January. So I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, I got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. A lot of sports today, a lot of significant games. So have a great day out there, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Truly is a Sunday fun day. And with that, guys, happy Sunday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.